Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to just close your eyes for a quick second. Imagine an incredibly dark, dead silent night. We're talking roughly 360 years ago. Literally, the only thing cutting through the pitch black is the faint flicker of torches. You can practically feel the tension in the air, right? Today, we're looking at a moment that absolutely shattered the geography of history. We're stepping back into the shadows to break down an event so wildly audacious that even the mighty Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb couldn't have seen it coming. Yep, today we're unpacking the sheer brilliance of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj midnight surgical strike. I am the mountain rat who built a navy from nothing and carved a kingdom out of the heart of the Mughal Empire. Man, just listen to the raw power in that statement. That wasn't just some empty boast, it was an absolute promise. Let's actually dissect how he lived up to those exact words. We're going to look at the mechanics of this unbelievable escape, a totally daring midnight raid against Aurangzeb's top general, and the, quite frankly, genius tactics that let a tiny group of warriors take back their land from an absolute behemoth of an empire. So, Part 1, The Impossible Odds. The year is 1663, and the Deccan is under serious threat. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer, mind-boggling asymmetry of this whole conflict. I mean, it's just wild. Back in 1663, the massive Mughal Empire has seriously stretched its legs deep into the Indian subcontinent. Emperor Aurangzeb is dead set on crushing the Deccan region, so he sends his own uncle, the formidable Shaista Khan, to just finish the job. So on one side, you have Shaista Khan commanding a colossal, heavily armed force of 100,000 Mughal troops. Think about that number. And on the other side, you have Shivaji Maharaj with a tiny, super agile special force of just 400 Maratha soldiers, the loyal Mavlas. It's the ultimate David versus Goliath setup. The Mughal army was basically seen as this impenetrable wall, and Shaista Khan, well, he was fully convinced his massive numbers guaranteed him absolute safety. Moving on to Part 2, the psychological stakes, specifically the occupation of Lal Mahal. You see, this wasn't just some standard battle over land or resources. No, this was deeply, deeply personal. The psychological weight here was just immense. Shaista Khan didn't just capture the city of Pune. Oh no, he went a step further and arrogantly set up his incredibly heavily guarded personal camp right inside Lal Mahal. Let that sink in for a second. Lal Mahal was literally Shivaji Maharaj's own childhood home. Imagine the pure agony of being a leader, having to watch your motherland get trampled under the boots of an invading army, and knowing that the enemy general is sleeping in the exact same rooms where you grew up. It was the ultimate disrespect, totally designed to just break the Maratha spirit. Which brings us to Part 3, the guerrilla mastermind. It's all about strategy over numbers. Here's the thing. Shaista Khan completely underestimated his opponent. Shivaji Maharaj wasn't foolish. He knew taking on 100,000 troops in an open field was basically a death sentence. So what does he do? He completely flips the script and turns to guerrilla warfare. Basically, if you can't beat the giant in a straight-up wrestling match, you have to outsmart him. This is unconventional combat at its absolute finest, relying entirely on stealth, the element of surprise, and super fast mobility. And Shivaji Maharaj wasn't just making this up as he went along. He was an absolute master of this domain. He had spent time perfecting these exact hit-and-run tactics with the Bill warriors, navigating the really rugged, unforgiving terrain of the Sahyadri Hills. He knew exactly how to use the environment itself as a weapon. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is when we actually place Shivaji's tactics next to other great historical leaders, a really fascinating picture emerges. Look at Maharana Pratap. He had this unbreakable resilience, right? The man was willing to eat rotis made of grass rather than surrender his homeland's dignity. Then look at Genghis Khan, an absolute master of psychological warfare. He knew exactly how to completely break enemy morale before a single sword was even swung. Shivaji Maharaj essentially combined both of these traits. He had that fierce, uncompromising devotion to his soil, just like Maharana Pratap, but paired it with the brilliant psychological tactical genius of Genghis Khan. All right, Part 4, the Midnight Deception. The date is April 5th, 1663. So the planning phase is officially over, and we are in the dead of night. You can just feel the tension, and honestly, the sheer audacity of this plan is mind-blowing. Step 1. Shivaji handpicks 400 of his absolute most intensely loyal soldiers. Step 2, and this is the crazy part. He doesn't have them crawl through the mud or anything. No, he hides them directly in plain sight. They disguise the entire strike force as an innocent wedding procession. By literally using the Mughals' own surroundings and cultural blind spots against them, they pull off step 3, walking right past the heavily armed defenses and straight into the sleeping Mughal camp. It is an infiltration so incredibly bold, the guards didn't even process what was happening until it was way, way too late. Which kicks off part 5, the surgical strike. Chaos in the kitchen. The second they are inside the perimeter, the disguise drops and things accelerate instantly. This is where the surgical strike actually goes down, and it is sudden, highly calculated, and totally explosive. The Marathas reach the very walls of Lal Mahal itself. And remember, Shivaji knows the layout of his childhood home perfectly, so he directs his men to quietly breach the kitchen wall, and they basically pour inside like shadows. The attack is terrifyingly swift, unleashing just absolute chaos, kind of like Genghis Khan's forces descending out of the dark, right? The strike leaves the Mughal soldiers entirely disoriented. We're talking screaming, shouting, and complete blind panic. They literally have no clue where the attack is coming from or how many enemies are even inside the walls. And right smack in the middle of all this absolute mayhem, we hit the climax of the night. Shaista Khan, this incredibly arrogant man who honestly thought he was completely untouchable hiding behind his 100,000 troops, is now literally running for his life. As he desperately tries to fling himself out of a window to escape, there's a blinding flash as Shivaji Maharaj's sword comes crashing down. It completely severs Shaista Khan's fingers. Now, he does manage to actually escape with his life, but his immense pride, his arrogance, that was instantly and permanently shattered. Let's look at the aftermath in part 6, the geopolitical fallout, a major blow to the empire. So the crucial point is that while the actual physical raid was over in just a matter of hours, the shockwaves from it changed history. The surgical strike wraps up on the night of April 5th. But then, just days later, the news of this absolute embarrassing humiliation reaches Aurangzeb all the way at the Red Fort in Delhi. The illusion of the Mughal army's invincibility totally broken. And then, weeks later, a completely furious and terrified Aurangzeb transfers his uncle, Shaista Khan, far, far away to Bengal. This wasn't just some small physical victory for the Marathas. It was a massive, echoing, psychological slap to the face of the entire Mughal Empire. It proved, without a doubt, that a handful of men with the perfect strategy could genuinely humble an empire. When we really step back and look at this incredible event, it brings up a pretty powerful philosophical truth. As the text here says, history teaches us that true greatness lies not in constructing tall buildings, but in the courage to build a brave and just society. Shivaji Maharaj's victory was basically the ultimate triumph of unwavering spirit, raw courage, and just incredibly precise strategy over sheer brute numbers. At the end of the day, it was all about protecting the soul of a homeland. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Just think about the sheer audacity, the deep psychological understanding, and the absolutely flawless execution of that night. Was Shivaji Maharaj's surgical strike on Lal Mahal the world's best military strategy? I want you to really think about the global significance of a tactic like this. What are your thoughts? I would absolutely love to hear how you think this stacks up against other famous military operations throughout history. If you found this breakdown as fascinating as I did, definitely make sure to dive deeper and subscribe to Shadow History for more incredible historical explainers. Until next time, keep questioning and keep learning.